RIFTS, this great wine making it happen again today with some more Portal Nights. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Having just a stupendously wonderful day myself. And I'm excited for today's video because today we're going to talk about delays. Delays are the topic of today's video. We're going to discuss how they work, what they do, things you may not know that they do, in fact do. Lots of things to talk about with delays. So let's jump into how they are supposed to work. Let's ignore this for now. Let's take a look at it. This says, transfers the incoming connection when the countdown expires. And then it says, input number 1, start delay. Input number 2, reset delay. And I'm here to tell you that doesn't make any sense. Because if we look, we only have an input number 1. Portal Knights, you're so silly. What do you say? What do you mean input number 2? There's no input number 2. There's only one input. That doesn't make any sense. You're crazy. So, let me tell you how it does work. So, we take, say, for example, a torch. Let's put a torch on there. And let's connect this delay to the torch and see what happens. Oh. So it's on for a second, off for a second, on for a second, off for a second. Okay, I wonder why that is. Well, let's look at it. Our delay is currently set up to 1 second for the delay, and there is not currently a signal going into it. So, this is the first unwritten rule. It's not written anywhere, you can't read it, but it is a rule of delays. If there is not a connection going into a delay, it is going to pulse whatever the delay is on and off. So we can move this slower, or faster rather, to 0.5 seconds. And you can see, we get a 0.5 second pulse. And it's going to do that. Now this does change, this does stop if, for example, we send something into it. Let's take a lever, for example. We've been playing with those a lot lately. Take this lever and feed it into the delay. Now, it stops. It doesn't do anything. Now, what you have to understand about delays is that they are constantly forwarding whatever signal they're getting. So, for example, what this should do is we send in a signal, it delays or waits 0.5 seconds, and then it'll put out whatever signal it got, and then it will stop, right? But let's see what happens. For example, if we turn this lever on, levers are a constant signal. They just stay on and they're constantly sending a signal. So if we turn this on, oh, it's not turning off, it's staying on because this lever is still sending a signal. It's constantly sending a signal into this delay. But if we turn this off, 0.5 seconds later, it will turn off. Now we can see this a little bit more obviously if we do a 2-second delay. We have 2 seconds until it starts. We turn it off. 2 seconds until it stops. So it's constantly taking that signal and constantly pushing it out 2 seconds later. And you can move those down as low as 0.1 seconds. That's about the shortest. Well, that's not true. I was going to say that's the shortest delay between sending a signal and having it like actually activate something, but that's not true. But we'll talk about that other stuff later. So for all intents and purposes right now, that's the fastest you're going to forward a signal other than directly hooking this lever up to something. Now, the way this normally would work is, say for example, we take a button. And this is a trick I have mentioned pretty much in every video I've made so far about logic blocks, but if you guys don't know already, delays are really good for buttons, because what'll happen is you'll press this button, it'll send a signal in here. Let's get a connection for the button, send a signal into the delay. The delay is set to 1 second. Let's get that connection and send it back into the button. So what'll happen is we'll press this button. 1 second later, it will receive the signal right away. It'll wait a second, and then it'll send it back. And buttons, when you send a signal back into them, pop back up. So we can just keep doing that over and over again. Sometimes it does kind of lag. Sometimes it'll break if we just spam this button a lot. It's not going to do it for me now. Sometimes they'll break. Buttons can be a bit finicky. But that is how it's supposed to work correctly. So you send it in, 1 second later it sends it back. And you can make that shorter too. You can do a 0.5 second button press. You can do a 0.1 second button press. But what you should know is that as long as this button is pressed, it's going to be sending a signal. So if you want to send a really fast signal, for example, you could set that delay to 0.1 seconds. Let's get that one out of there. Set this delay to 0.1 seconds. Have the connection from the button, have the button signal go into this torch. And then we can see when we press that button, we just get a really fast light on the torch. But if we were to send the signal from this delay into the torch instead, so this delay is lighting that torch, let's see what happens. It's not immediate. It has that 0.1 second delay. We can see this a little bit more obviously if we do, say, a 1 second delay. Let's have that button. The button's now lighting the torch again. What happens if we press this? We get a 1 second light. Now, what if we have the delay lead into the torch instead? We'll press the button, and nothing will happen until 1 second later, and you'll see the amount of time that that torch is lit is equal to the amount of time that that button was pressed. So however long the signal was that went into this delay, that will get forwarded to the torch. So that's going to be consistent. You guys need to know that if you're going to be using delays, however long that signal you're sending is how long it's going to send a signal back or forward to whatever you want it to do. So what you could do if you wanted to is you could have, for example, let's say a door. Let's grab a door. Let's go with a big blue door. Big blue door has been our theme lately. And let's see, for example, if we press this button down and we have it open the door, we could have this delay. You could use a timer, but this is a little bit simpler way to do this, is you could use a delay, set it to, let's say, 5 seconds. So this button is now feeding a signal into this delay. 5 seconds later, the delay will send a signal back to the button and pop it up. And while the button's down, we'll send a signal to this door to open it. So now if we press that, we have 5 seconds to get through, and then the door closes. So a really simple way you can use a delay. You could go through the whole rigmarole of using a timer and then resetting the timer after the door closes, but that's just a whole situation you don't even need to bother with, and you could instead use a delay. Now, you should also know that with delays, you can link these together. If you want a delay that lasts longer than 10 seconds, if 10 seconds isn't long enough for you, you could put a second delay down. You could have this button send a signal into this delay. You could take this connection from this delay, send it into this delay, and say you want to go 12 seconds. So we have 10 seconds on this delay, 2 more seconds on this delay. We'll get the connection from this second delay that is being fed into and feed it right back into the button. So now when we press that button, we'll actually get 10 seconds on this one. And then once that 10 seconds is up, it'll forward that signal again to this delay for 2 more seconds, which it will then forward back to the button to have it pop back up. So that's a 12-second delay. So you can daisy chain these to get a longer delay if you want to. Now you could also use these delays to do certain things. This is kind of how I made the elevators work. If you guys haven't seen my elevators before, I actually use the delays to kind of create the elevator effect. So when I press this button, you can see that those trapdoors are going up, 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 because each of those trapdoors is, well, through a few other things like the AND gates and using the NOT gates and whatnot. But essentially what's really causing this to happen, that chain reaction, is that these delays are what affect the doors being open or closed. And so each of them is set to 0.1 seconds. So when that signal gets sent up this chain, you can see this one is connected to this one, is connected to this one, is connected to this one, is connected to this one. As it's being sent up that chain, it's sending that signal one by one up that chain. So if you wanted to have something that opened in a sequence like that, or every so many seconds, say you wanted a door to open 2 seconds after you press the button, you wanted the door to open, then 5 seconds after that, then 1 second after that, you could press this button, have it go into this, have that go into this, have that go into this, and then finally have it go back into the button. And then we can actually see if those are on or working correctly by putting a torch on top of it. And then we'll have that delay feed into the torch. So that way, those torches will only light when those delays are active, so we can tell if this is working correctly. So let's press the button and see what happens. That one turns on. This one's 5 seconds. This one's 1 second. And then what you can see is that that button press, for as long as this was down, will stay on and then it will continue to send that full signal length. So it's not just turning that one off. Now, if you wanted to, for example, have that so all three weren't on at the same time, say you wanted it to, instead of going this one's on, then this one's on, then that one's on, and then it turns off, and then now they kind of do a wave motion, you know? It goes on, off, off, off. Instead of doing something like that, what we could do instead is we could have this first delay feed back into the button. So once this one forwards the signal, then it will turn off the button, and that will cause a little bit of a different effect. Let's see what happens then. So we press our button, 2 seconds later, it turns on the torch, and then this gets turned off. That signal was sent to this, but it didn't. See, there was a time when these weren't lit. That's because this had already forwarded that short 2-second signal, and then this was 5 seconds for the wait until it started. So there was 3 seconds left over where nothing was lit. So this one has our 2-second wait. It lights for 2 seconds, and then there's 3 seconds of waiting before this one lights, and then 1 second, this one turns off, and then this one turns off, and then we're back to where we started. So delays, you can do quite a lot with them. There's a lot of complex things you can do just with the delays. You guys have seen, if you haven't seen already, I made a tutorial for a scrolling marquee. When we press this button, all this is this is a bunch of delays. Oh, that's the wrong button. This is a bunch of delays feeding into each other. These lights are just hooked up to delays. So back here, you can actually see that's just a big chain of delays going this way, chain of delays going this way, all in columns. So yeah, just using delays, there's so much complex stuff that you can do. And that's really about all I wanted to share with you guys about delays. If there's something else about these that you want to know, definitely leave a comment in the comments section. I would be happy to answer any questions you have about them. One thing you always want to keep in mind is this part of delays. I feel like this is a pretty big deal, and you can do a lot of cool things with this, and people don't really consider it. Having that when there's no signal going into it, constantly kind of resetting itself, that's a big deal, guys. You can do a lot of cool things with that. That's actually one way that I set up so this is my dice roller. You guys know about this, I believe. This is our RNG. Oh, what the heck? Oh, I know what's going on. There we go. So press that button. This is our random number generator. Those are just delays feeding into each other. That's just a circle of delays feeding into each other. We press the button, and it gets us a random number. But in the world that Nikki Ma and I are working on, one of my super amazing, awesome friends, Nikki Ma, we're working on a board game in Portal Knights, kind of like Mario Party. That's kind of in the works right now. We made a auto roller because sometimes this thing breaks. This roller breaks. Sometimes you don't get a signal out of it. Sometimes it doesn't work. Like right there, we just saw. I pressed the button. I didn't get a signal. That time it worked. That time it didn't work. Oh, it did work. Sometimes it doesn't work. That is a real problem. So what we did is I set up a delay and kind of combined it with some timers and some other things. And I set it so that it would automatically try and re-roll every so often, every like 0.5 seconds or every 1 second, it would try to re-roll until it did get an output, and then it would stop. I did that by creating a timer that would only be turned off when we got an output. It would be turned on once let me show you really quick here. I had a timer here, and then I had an AND gate, and I'm getting into a little bit more deep stuff. This was supposed to be just about delays, but this is a pretty simple thing to show you just how this is actually kind of useful. Is when I had it, so when I turned on the roller, and once the dice started rolling, this is the kind of the symbol for the dice are rolling. Once I had the dice start rolling, I turned on this timer, and then I had an AND gate that said, while this timer is on and we're rolling, because that's what that timer stands for then, is that these are on. So once these are on, and we've pressed this button, it will keep pressing the button every time this pulses until we get an output. And then when we have an output, I would have that turn off this timer so that didn't happen anymore. So this delay can be used for a lot of really cool things. And you guys, I challenge you to go out there and experiment, see what you can make. Somebody suggested we make a Tetris game. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make a Tetris game. It's a really cool idea, but I will do my best to try and get something like that working. I'm not sure if I will be able to or not, but it's my word to you. I will give it the old college try. But if you have any other ideas, guys, for things you could make with these logic blocks, go ahead and post them in the comments section. I'd be happy to read through them, see if there's anything plausible that I could actually attempt to do. Make sure you guys like this video if you liked it. I'm trying to be as helpful as I can and spread as much knowledge about these logic blocks as I can, because honest to God, guys, I believe that Portal Knights could be a great game. I believe this logic system that they've introduced to the game, it's based on actual combinational logic in the world that people study for computer science. This is a real thing, and you can do incredible things with this stuff. I'm just scratching the surface. I'm such a novice at this. It's unbelievable. There's if some of those really smart redstone creators from Minecraft got into this stuff, I can't even imagine the stuff they would make with it. It could get just absolutely incredible. So I really want to spread the knowledge and awareness of this stuff that's in Portal Knights. So make sure you guys like the video if you liked it. Get some eyes on this series. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm trying to make a career out of this, hopefully someday. So you guys subscribing really does help me reach that goal. But you guys, you've been a pleasure as always, and I hope you do have just the best kind of day. See you later, dudes.